So yeah, I am Isabel Fenton. I'm a research software engineer / research data scientist at the Alan Turing Institute. And in this talk, I'm going to be discussing some of the things we've learned as the team has grown from a group of 3 RSEs to where we currently are now 40 roughly RSEs and a range of related topics. So I'm assuming most of you come from RSE backgrounds, and probably some of you have been involved in putting together project teams. And you can imagine that when you've got, okay, I've got this new project coming along, who's going to be on it? And if you're considering the people you have, you might say, okay, how many people do we want for the team? How many RSEs? What level of seniority? Are they going to be only focusing on this one project, or are they going to be splitting their time over multiple different projects? Do they need specific skill sets for this? What's the need for the individual? So is this going to help them in their career on this project? Is this something that if they're stuck on it for too long, they will stagnate? And then the other aspect is, okay, what about the project? What's the needs of the project? How long is it going to be? How many other people externally are going to be on that project? So researchers or whatever. Are they going to be bringing in the relevant domain knowledge, or is that something that we're going to have to try and provide? Do they have other technical expertise? How is that going to be linked in? What's the technical aspect of the project? And is this something where it's a pre-formed project, the RSEs already know exactly what they want to, like what they're going to be doing on it, or is it we're starting a project and we're going to have to start shaping that project, in which case you want people who've experience in shaping projects? So I'm assuming, like, you can think there's a lot of these different things to think about when you're putting together a team. At the Turing, we are the UK's National Institute for Data Science and AI. Project teams don't just include RSEs. So you'll normally have a set of researchers, academics, postdocs, sometimes people from industry or other companies. You'll have project or program managers, and their job is to provide, as well as project management skills, it's also things like communicating with the funders or communicating with external collaborators, making sure you've got understanding with them, that you all agree on what you're working on. The research engineers, which is us, I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the research application managers, or related to this, we also have research community managers. And these are people who go, okay, you can develop an academic thing or a tool, how are we going to make sure it's used? What are the needs of the end user? What are the needs of the community that it's going to be used by? How do we make sure that we think about that all the way through the building of our products, the building of our tools, so that we don't just come to that at the end and suddenly say, oh, what do people actually want from it? So we have lots of different people who all bring different aspects of skill sets, different knowledge to projects. So yeah, I said I'd then focus on the research engineers. So our group, as I said, 40 of us. We have a range of job titles, though there's actually quite a lot of overlap between what we do. So software engineers and data scientists, computer engineers, which are more expertise in HPC systems, for example, and data wranglers who are very good at handling different sized data sets, bringing them all together, processing complex things to be usable by the research project. And then we also have a range of seniorities, so ranging from junior coming in, people who've never really done RSE before, where they get trained, working up through standard, senior, lead, principal, and director. And we have opportunity for career progression within the team, so people are able to shift from one level to the next level up as they develop and gain skills. So we've got a large team, and the first few years of the Turing, it was much smaller than that. We started off, I think, 7 or 8 years ago with 3 basically RSEs. They were all, I think we had 2 standards and 1 more senior, but it was basically all roughly the same level. Over the last 7 years, we've developed this much more complex structure. And there's a reason that we've done that. And that's a lot to do with how our projects that we're doing have changed through time. So for the first while, we were working on a very wide range of projects. Here's some of them. There are other things in there. Generally, you had mostly small projects. They were roughly as many projects as there were team members. So generally team members would be on 1 or 2 projects, working with maybe one other person. Generally, the projects had little continuity between them. There wasn't much link. It wasn't easy to say, oh, I've got this knowledge on this area from this project, I can now use it on another project. Some of the technical skills were linked, but very little of the domain knowledge was linked. People were basically expected to be working on any of the projects that came up. They could suggest, well, I'm interested in this area, maybe I'd be good on that one. But you had to be quite flexible. You moved around a lot. People would typically work on a project, 2 projects at a time, and they would often shift at least one of those projects every 6 months. Whereas what we've transitioned to now, this has been happening for the last couple of years in the Turing, is a shift to a much smaller subset of research areas. So we have 4 big areas: environment and sustainability, health, defense and national security, and fundamental research. And within those areas, we have very much a focus on real world impact. So it's, what can we do with this that's actually going to make a difference to people? How can we be working on projects that are practical, going to produce things that people, funders, and the general public will notice? There's quite a lot of collaboration with external partners. So that means, for example, in environment, I'll talk more about this in a minute, we've got a collaboration with the Met Office. That changes the dynamics when you're working with external people. And generally, the projects are larger, more people on them, and longer duration. So that means that our people on the RSEs will much less frequently transition between projects. They will generally stay on a single project for a much longer period of time. They will normally only be working on one project at a time. And the question then is, okay, well, if that's what's going to happen, how are we going to decide who should be on which projects? What are the implications of that for the RSEs? How does it affect their careers? How does it affect what they want to do? And how should we be building these larger project teams? So I'm going to do a few case studies. There's broad sort of different answers to this that we've come up with. And you can see that in this context, we've got weather prediction, we've got this is working with the Met Office. So a set of linked projects, there's one also working with Cambridge, where the RSEs are embedded long-term in that mission. They develop knowledge in weather forecasts. There is a range of reg researchers at different levels within that team. So we've got a lead in each team as well as standard seniors. And the leads are expected to be communicating among the different teams. And you're allowed chance to develop more in-depth subject knowledge that you can then work on other related environment projects. Second case study, in this context, this is much more specific technical skills. So here it's managing the computing resources, HPC systems. And here we have expert computer engineers. They are a team that then provides embedded support to other projects. So they go work with other individual projects. They also develop tools that can be useful, like the trusted research environments that are used by these other projects. The third case study we have here is a much shorter project. This was a government funded, they came to us and said, look, we've got 6 weeks, 2 months to do a single project. Can you see if you can get large language models running on small computers? And so it was much more of a proof of concept. It was much shorter duration. You don't have the time to build up a stable team that's going to last for long term. So a lot of people were brought off other projects for a short period to work on this. And it was much more using the agile methodology, agile sprints, to develop that skill set. So the challenge with all of this is that we then have quite a lot of people working in different areas. We've got much less meeting between those areas. How do we maintain a team culture? So we have 1 week a year where everybody gets to work with each other on whichever project they're interested in, nothing to do with their normal project work. There's a lot of team lunches, there's a lot of shared opportunities. We also do team planning, away days. We do tech talks and reading groups for shared knowledge. We do coffee chats, socialization. A lot of us are remote, so it's a chance to just chat to colleagues. And we have time for personal development. And so just to summarize this, basically we transitioned from Turing 1.0, where the number of people grew and the number of projects grew. We worked our way up this line. We've now shifted down to having more people than projects. So most teams are based around domain knowledge. We have a few teams like the computer engineers who are based around technical skills. And then when necessary, we draw people from shorter term projects onto other teams. So I'll leave you with a few lessons that we have learned from this. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Isabel. I think I know how to do this. I can start by reading the first question, which is software architects and software testers are roles in industry that are almost absent in RC. Why, and will this become a thing?
I mean, probably the reason they're absent is more that a lot of people have those skills, but they're just not focusing only on that. They're using that as part of their skill set. Will it become more of a thing as time goes on? I suspect it depends on whether it's necessary. So if you're building a bit of software that is going to be used by loads of other people outside that needs to be very robust, then yes, I think it will. When you're doing much more research-focused stuff, then there's a trade-off. You don't need to spend as much time on testing on things. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have some of those skills already, so we just don't separate them out as individual roles.
The next question is about project management methodologies. How do you go about that?
It varies by project, so we have quite a lot of flexibility. I would say most of us don't follow a particular project management scheme, so that the project managers have much more experience in this. Most of the software engineers, we've not been trained explicitly in Prince2 or Agile or anything else, but we've picked up quite a lot of ideas. For the short sprint projects, I think they tend to follow Agile more because it's very much, we need fast results, we need a quick analysis, is this going where we're going to? But I'd say generally we don't explicitly follow these schemes, but we take quite a lot of the ideas from them and use them in other places.
So many questions they get the boats keep change. What would you say is the main difference between longer projects and experimental short projects from the RC team practices perspective?
Longer projects give you time to embed, time to build your knowledge of the domain, and that can be very useful because there's some things that are, if you understand the domain better, you can build it better, you can have formed contacts with other teams and other knowledge. Short term is very good for learning stuff, but you don't get as much development. You can't do anything in as much detail, so it's much more quick and dirty. It's a different experience. So there's benefits to both, but I think it depends on your team and how many you have and what the balance is. And we tend to now have longer projects, and I think there are good parts of that.
I think we can take one more question, which is how do you handle people wanting to move between teams and domains where there doesn't exist someone else to move into their space, especially if they're in like a key project?
Always a challenge. We try to make sure that there's no one person that is absolutely fundamental, that there are other people that can move in, and we have, if people would like to move, they will raise that with their line manager, with their project lead, and say, look, this is something I'm considering moving on, and we'll try and do a board solve that will allow different people to come in and exchange that. But I think this is something we've not fully worked out because we've only been doing this system where we're domain specific for just over a year. So we have a theory as to how it will work. Come and ask us in a couple of years as to whether that happens. And yeah, we'll see from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think we'll have to leave it there. Please come find Isabel, and please join me in thanking all of the speakers for today again for an awesome session. I want to come and talk to all of you more. So thank you.